Well, welcome everybody to our public hearings for the second night of human sources funding hearing for education and skill building. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be public on our City of Longmont YouTube page, in particular for other board members who are also evaluating this priority area, so they can see it as well. So the way the hearing will go is that we have about a 50-minute Q&A from board and staff, and then about a 5-minute time frame for the agency to share whatever you need to share. We don't have to use all those 50 minutes. If we don't have, then we will be done early, and that's fine. And as a reminder, this is being evaluated both by board, staff, and this year we were excited to have other internal partners that we're calling subject matter experts review these applications as well. So we're excited to get more of the department involved, and we will make our recommendations November 14th and take them before council in December. And always the caveat is that council gets to decide whether they choose to, or whether they accept our recommendations, or if they have other ideas. It's ultimately council's decision on to accept human services funding. All right. With that being said, why don't we do quick introductions? Annalise, Matt, introduce yourselves, and then we'll introduce ourselves real quickly, and we'll get going.
Sure. Thanks, Alberto, and thank you for letting us be here. My name is Matt Eldred. I'm in my 13th year as the president and CEO of TLC Learning Center, formerly known as the Tiny Tim Center here in Longmont. Annalise Nugent, I've asked Annalise to join mostly just as an observer so she could understand this process. She is our new Vice President of Early Childhood Services, and Annalise oversees our day-to-day operations of our educational and our therapeutic services departments. So she oversees the day-to-day in those two departments, but she's mostly here today as this is a learning curve for her. She's been here about 3 months now, and so that's why I've invited her here today. I don't expect her to be able to answer all of your questions, and if she can, then that's a bonus that she's learned all that in 3 months. But that's who we are. Thanks for letting us be here.
Thank you. Cassie, do you want to go next?
Sure, I'm Cassie. I'm a member of the board, and I'm very interested in your story.
Annalise, I saw you go off mute. Sorry if I interrupted you. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, I was just going to say what Matt said and say I am welcome to be here, and I'm excited to just kind of see the process. So that's all I was going to say.
Okay, thank you. Christina?
Hi, Matt. Hi, Annalise. I'm Christina Pacheco. I'm the Human Services Director for the city, and I'm currently in the car, so I won't be on camera until I am at my computer again.
And I'm Eliberto Mendoza, Program Manager for Human Services here in the City of Longmont. And yeah, let's get started. Cassie, do you have a question?
Yeah, so it looks like your program is neurodivergent and non-neurodivergent, right? And I have to admit, I had to Google that word. How do you just, and I think it's sort of 60-40. How do you, I think you probably have demands for a lot more than that. So do you consciously keep it at certain levels, or how do you decide who you're going to?
Yep, that's a really good question. So we have 9 classrooms of children. We start with infants at 8 weeks and through children up through age 5 in preschool. We have 9 classrooms, and I'm really excited to let you all know that we have all 9 of our classrooms open. This is the first time, just the 1st of October, that those classrooms are open since March of 2020. Since we've closed through COVID, we have not been able to reopen, and we are, as of October, open with 9 classrooms. To answer your question, the way we make up the 60-40, that's kind of an internal number, and it's not a black and white number. We know that all kids have individual needs, and basically neurodivergent is the newest term for special needs. That special needs seems like such a broad term. Neurodivergent, as you probably Googled, there are a lot of, especially social emotional, sensory integration, autism spectrum, you name the disability, that whole spectrum is what we now know as neurodiverse children. I don't think there is such a thing as a typical child. There is not a typical 3-year-old. Every 3-year-old is an independent thinker, and they have their own needs. And at TLC Learning Center, we try to meet the needs of every child. However, we really specialize in services for children that have additional needs in that neurodivergent need. What we also know is that if we have in the past taken an unbalanced number of children, for instance, if we have 90 to 95% of our children in a classroom with neurodivergent needs, especially social emotional, sensory issues, that none of the children get their needs met. If we're just trying to serve all children with special needs in a classroom, none of our children are having their needs met well. So we intentionally try to keep that balance because, again, children with additional needs need additional supports, supervision, intervention. But children who don't have some of those additional needs also benefit from being in a diverse classroom of children that may be different than them. And the reality is that there are all kinds of differences. And at TLC, we try to really balance that. And so that 60-40 is kind of our own internal mechanism. But I will tell you that in some classrooms, for instance, in our infant room, we typically have more 80 to 90% what we would call children who don't have a neurodivergent need. But some of that is because it hasn't been identified yet or it hasn't shown itself yet. So those developmental delays might not show up until 6 months, 8 months down the road. So in the infant room, it might look like it's more of a typically developing infant room. Now, it's really obvious if a kiddo's got a helmet or if they've got are immobile. Those are pretty immediate needs that we know that, you know, that child is going to have some physical needs. Other needs are not as easy to detect. And so our infant room, we have less children with identified needs. But what we're finding is a lot of those children, we're identifying those needs earlier. And we call that early intervention. If we can intervene early in a child's needs and development, and we're able to intervene early, the likelihood is that that child may not need those services forever. And the earlier that they get those services, the more likely they are to be successful. So does that answer your question?
Yes, very well. Thank you very much.
Yep.
So, Matt, one of the board members who couldn't be here, he's actually sent me a question. Graham Steers sent me a question he wanted me to ask. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. He says, I see you survey families twice a year. What was your biggest learning from the most recent surveys, and how has your program been impacted or improved by that information?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we survey families in a couple of different ways. We do a parent survey. We also do parent-teacher conferences. We do that twice a year. And we also survey parents after the second parent-teacher conference. Some of the questions are similar and some of them are different about how is your experience, your daily routines, how do you feel like your relationship is with your child's teacher? Do you feel like communication is, well, you know, is good? Those kinds of things. But the biggest thing that we ask parents is, are there things that you would need us to know? And the biggest thing that we get from our families is that it is increasingly harder and harder for families to afford our services. Our tuition rates, we're in about the 75th to 80th percentile of what childcare costs in Boulder County. Our infants are around $1,800 a month and the preschoolers are $1,600 a month. That's our full tuition fare. Fortunately, our CCAP pays really well in Boulder County, and our families that are on that assistance program get nearly to our full fare tuition. Our families that can afford that can pay $1,600 to $1,800 a month. However, we're finding more and more families that do not qualify for the assistance programs, but their challenges of the $1,600 to $1,800 a month are really challenging. We have seen a 30% increase in the request for what we call a TLC scholarship, which is basically we offer scholarships to families when they either are not eligible for other assistance programs or they lose their other assistance program for a variety of different reasons. That has been our biggest probably feedback that we've gotten from families is they appreciate the scholarship that they're getting, whether that's a 10, a 20, a 30% discount, and they're asking us to please seriously consider not raising tuition because it's a financial barrier for some of our families that they may have to decide, do they stay with us or not? That's the biggest, it's not a complaint, but that's the biggest source of feedback that we got this last year was that. And I think it just is in general, the cost of everything has gone up. And so if your other expenses have gone up and your childcare might be, if not the most expensive thing after your mortgage or rent, it may be the second most expensive thing that your family pays out of pocket, even more than your health care and food costs. So that has been the biggest thing that we saw. And it is proof that we saw more requests for TLC scholarships. And it's not just for families that you would think would be the typical family where they lost their CCAP. Some of these are either single or dual income earning families that are just struggling to live in this community and work in this community and afford childcare in this community. That's been the biggest feedback that we got this last year, was the need for financial assistance and to please consider not raising tuition.
So a follow-up question for that then, Matt, based on his question.
Yep.
How have you responded to that need? Like what is TLC doing to respond to that need?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is we're passing this on to all of our funders. We know that you have difficult decisions to make. Every one of our funders, there has been no funder this year that have said, we have more money to give out than we've ever had, and we have fewer people asking for it. In fact, we have the opposite. Every funder that we're talking to says, we are either at stable funding or we've had to decrease our funding, and the amount of requests has increased. And so I know that you're in a difficult position, because I'm sure that the city of Longmont didn't just find another pot of money. That money is finite, and the requests continue to grow. And so what we've had to do is we let all of our funders know that our needs are greater than they've ever been. What we also want everybody to know is that we are so fortunate to be a part of a lot of the stimulus funding over the last 3 or 4 years. However, that is not sustainable funding, and most of that is done by the end of 2024. And we've been very fortunate with that, but that's not going to continue in the future. So what we've tried to do is we've done 2 things. We've continued 2 large fundraising events. We do a Derby party in May and a Christmas tree festival. This will be the 44th year of the Christmas tree festival this year. And within those 2 events, we raise over $100,000 for our scholarship fund that funds that very thing that I was telling you about, the TLC scholarship fund. But it still does not fully fund the nearly $140,000 that we give out in scholarships every year. So we've done a couple of things. One is we have not cut our expenses. We, in fact, have increased our expenses. 80% of our expenses are payroll, as you can see in the budget and the financials that we sent over to you. 80% of our expenses are payroll. In 2024, it's actually going to be 83% of our total budget is payroll, and we plan to increase that in the future. And that's really difficult to try to maintain those levels without sustainable funding. So we started an endowment through the Longmont Community Foundation, and we're encouraging people to be a part of that endowment. That might be another longer term sustainable funding mechanism, that if we can get that to a 2 million, 5 million, and we draw 2 to 3 to 4% every year, that helps offset some of the operating costs that continue to grow and increase. And that's going to be one of the major things that we look at, especially as we expand into the new facilities and the things that I'm sure we'll talk about before we end. But I see Christina's hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. That's a perfect segue into the question that I wanted to ask, and that, we're asking of all agencies. You did accurately represent kind of where we're at with the need growing, the need outpacing the resource that we have in
Yep.
terms of the set aside from our general fund. And so one of the questions that we're asking all agencies, knowing that this is a competitive process, what would be the impacts, or what would happen if your grant was not funded?
Yeah, it would be devastating. When we started this funding with the Human Services funding in Longmont, it was pretty specific to this funding of, I can't remember if it started at $32,000, $35,000, $38,000 a year, nearly fully funded 1 full staff member. And that was super great. And that, while it didn't go to a specific staff member, it funded 1 position. Since we've been able to increase some of the funding over time with the Human Services funding, we've actually been able to increase our salaries of staff, and we've been able to add additional staff. Again, we have 9 classrooms open now, fully staffed with our education staff. And I would say if we would not have been able to open that 9th classroom if we were not paying our teachers a competitive salary. And when I say competitive, I'm talking $20 an hour. This isn't like these are, $75,000, $80,000 salaries we're talking about, but these are individuals qualified, most of them bachelor's level competent educators that are deciding, do I do early childhood, or do I go to Walmart and Smucker's and stuff peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because I can make $22 an hour there? So we're not losing educators to other educational facilities or even to the school district, we're losing them from the industry. And so the funding that we get from our funders is critical to make sure that we can ensure that we hire qualified and competent staff. And I would argue that $20 an hour still may not be competitive, but that's our goal, is to be competitive with the industry and continue to make sure that our retention rate is high so that we can keep staff. It would be devastating to lose funding from especially some of our long-standing funders.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Matt? All right, then Matt, I'm going to turn off our timer. We have about a minute left, and I'm going to give you your 5 minutes. And again, you don't have to use all of them, but I'm going to transition to your 5 minute now.
Yeah, if I could let you guys go early, that's probably, I'm a preacher's kid from Nebraska, and they tell me that the sermons that are done the earliest are the best ones. So it doesn't matter what good things you have to say. If you finish early, then it's good. What I really want to invite you all to, and I'm really excited about, tomorrow is our groundbreaking ceremony at 4:30 at the new property at 1444 East 3rd Avenue. This is a partnership with the City of Longmont, with Boulder County, and the Department of Early Childhood through the state of Colorado, where we have raised to date $13.4 million of a $17 million project to have 19 classrooms, about a dozen therapy rooms, and a community collaborative space for the community to use, not just TLC Learning Center staff, but all educators to come get the resources, professional development, and training they need, including our largest sector, which is our friends, families, and neighbor care. We call that FFN care in Longmont and Boulder County, which we think accounts for about 60% of where children are in Longmont. They are with friends, families, and neighbors. That's not the mission of TLC Learning Center. We're not an FFN provider, but we believe in innovative and high quality approaches that every educator needs to have access to those resources. And so we're opening up this space to our FFN community, which includes grandparents, seniors, as well as unlicensed child care providers that are trying to do good work in our community and often get overlooked and under-recognized. So I'm really excited about the project. This only has happened with some of the ARPA funding and some stimulus funding through the City of Longmont, Boulder County. It is also in partnership with a employer-based child care grant that the City of Longmont actually was able to obtain through the state of Colorado, and then pass that on to TLC as part of our capital build-out. And we'll be able to partner with the city and city employees on child care benefits in the future. So it's a really exciting project. That's where we're headed. All that to say that our, $2.5 million budget right now in a 15,000 square foot building, I don't know that the budget is going to double, but the space is going to double, and our capacity is going to increase for what we're able to do in this community, and it's really exciting. And so I don't know if you have any questions about that, but I just wanted to invite you to we're calling it Touch a Truck groundbreaking ceremony tomorrow at 4:30. We've got the large trucks and equipment, and we've been told that you can touch them, but you might not be able to drive them. Something about liability, or I don't exactly know, but anyway, we want to invite you to be a part of that, and we're really excited to share that with the community. And I think it'll be in the front page of the Times Call tomorrow. You'll probably be seeing an announcement about that as well.
Awesome, thanks. Thanks, Matt. Any questions or comments for Matt?
No,
If not-
I don't have any others. Nope.
Okay, great. If not, then Matt and Annalise, thank you for being here. We got a couple of minutes before our next group, so appreciate your brevity and answering those questions well. Have a good night.
Thank you all, and thank you for what you're doing and all these decisions, and I really appreciate what you're doing for the City of Longmont and Human Services. Thanks.
And thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Bill, we got about another minute. Amy and Jen are already in the waiting room.
Hey.
Start here in a minute. There were several meetings. There was another meeting going on here in the CM office. So it's hopping when I got here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and let them in.
Hi there.
Hey, Amy.
Hi, all.
Hey, Jen.
How are you?
Good. All right. So it is 6:20. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. First of all, something you need to know is that this is being recorded and will be on our public YouTube channel, primarily for other board members to see, but of course, anybody can see it. As usual, we're going to do about a 15-minute Q&A, and then we'll try and give you all 5 minutes at the end for you to share whatever you need to share. Oh, sorry, I had another timer going off that just went off. So before we get started, love for you all to introduce yourselves real quickly, and then we'll get going. Why don't we start with Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy Ogilvie. I'm the CEO of Wild Plum.
I'm Jen Clark. I'm the development officer.
Okay, Cassie.
I'm Cassie Lau, and I'm a committee member.
Awesome, Christina.
Hi, Amy and Jen. You know me, Christina Pacheco, Human Services Director, City of Longmont.
All right, and I'm Eliberto Mendoza, Human Services Program Manager, help with this whole process. So, all right, let's go ahead and get started. Cassie, do you want to go first? Do you have any questions for Amy or Jen?
I think generally, like if we've been hearing how things are changing over time. I guess what's the biggest challenge since even last year for you?
I'll take a run at that one, Jen. It's really just ultimately finances. We are challenged by the freeze that's happening with CCAP. We have open slots that are sitting vacant because our families are all exclusively low-income families. And if they don't qualify for CCAP, they can't afford to be in our program. That's not true for all families because we're also Head Start, but that CCAP funding gets blended with our Head Start funding and other funds in order to make a full day of care for kiddos. Head Start really only provides us about 60% of what we need to be able to operate. So we rely on other funding sources to get us to that point. I'm concerned about what the City of Longmont's minimum wage is going to be. I firmly believe that everyone deserves a living wage, but I think there's going to be a lot of really unintended consequences as a result of that. I think families are going to lose access to CCAP as an item, but other benefits like Medicare or Medicaid. Sorry, I've been dealing with a 95-year-old aunt, so Medicare is in my head, not Medicaid. They're going to lose Medicaid, access to other subsidies that are helping them stay afloat, and that minimum wage isn't going to be able to pay for all of that. And then we're also in a situation where Head Start just put out 65 new performance standards, and some of those are very wage heavy, and there's no new money coming with those. And their proposal to Head Start programs is just cut slots, which is not what our community needs. It's not what our families need. It's not appropriate. So, that for me is our biggest challenge right now, is to balance the finances that are related to all of these things and still try to provide a high quality program with good ratios for children, not having too many kids in a class, having enough teachers, qualified teachers, being able to pay qualified teachers to be in the classrooms. So that's kind of a long answer, but that's really the biggest thing for us at this point.
Thank you very much. It's a great answer.
Oh, and we just took an $8,000 cut from Boulder County. We were notified of that today. So Boulder County funding was reduced by about $8,000 for us.
So Amy, that leads up to. Oh, sorry. Do you have a question, Christina?
Yeah, just kind of along those lines, Amy. What impact is the cut from Boulder County going to have on your service provision? And if you're, this is a competitive grant process, what impact would a cut or not being funded have on your program also?
So, $8,000 doesn't sound like a lot, but if you start pairing that with other cuts and you start pairing that with CCAP being frozen and a new minimum wage for Longmont and things along those lines, it's a huge impact. And it's kind of the same answer, really, Christina, that I just gave a minute ago, is that Head Start's putting all these new things on us with no new funding. So the impact is we cut slots, we close buildings, we cut slots, we cut programs, that's the bottom line. Or we change our model completely and go from serving low-income families to serving families who can afford to pay a full price to be in the program, which is not our mission. It's not the way that we're designed to be as a program. So it would be a real shift for us as an organization to go to that too.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Jen, did you have anything to add?
Well, I just was thinking about Amy's initial point around the funding and the requirements that are coming out of the federal level and Head Start, and then the local level. But I'll just say it feels like we're getting hit from every side, from city to county to state to federal. So when it rains, it pours. And while the funding requirements, as I understand them for Head Start, is on the horizon, and we're going to have to prepare for that if we meet the terms. But it's coming from every angle, it seems, this surge in pay, which we're all about. But getting hit from every angle is definitely hard to manage. So I would hate to see seats be sacrificed, and for us to have to shift away from the need, because while business models and blended business models for paying customers versus the target market, it would hurt to not be able to continue to meet the need for the population that we serve.
So, and actually that leads me to my question. So, and I'm not sure if I've asked this before in the past. When I look at your budget, you talked about 60% coming from the Head Start grant. What other areas? What are you Are you doing any work in diversifying that, so these kind of cuts, these government, whether local, state, aren't as impactful? Is there any work being done on increasing other revenue streams?
You want to hit that, Jen, or you want me to take it?
Well, I think you can hit it from a larger level. But yeah, as far as from a development level, we are looking really hard at the business community and trying to create relationships and leverage their networks and their workforce as donors and sponsors of events that bring, not big money, but that's one line item that we're trying to grow. And then we're also trying to grow our relationships and deepen our relationships with our current donor base. We don't have a large donor base, but we have a committed donor base, and we'd like to see donors, the moves management move up and increase their giving. So, and then there's always looking at the other foundations. I find it hard to find local. I see it's all in Denver Metro, or it feels that way for the things that we want to do. It's very limited regionally, but we're gonna keep kind of looking at all multiple sources as far as external funding streams go and direct asks, and then look to build our donor base here with intention. And we're going hard at it. So expecting 2025 and 2026 to see some results, but don't have a crystal ball. So your guess might be as good as mine.
Yeah, and Eliberto, expand for me a little bit on that question, the diversification outside of federal. So when you say federal, are you referring to Head Start specifically?
Right. Yeah. Typically the
Okay.
Head Start grant.
Okay. Yes. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Because,
Is it 60% of total funding, or is it less or more?
Head Start is about 60% of our total funding.
So you got, where do the other 40% come from?
Yeah, the other 40% right now is coming from CCAP, the city, the county, UPK, foundations, some donors. And, Jen's right. We don't have a big individual donor pool. And if you really kind of think about that, who is the population we serve? They're not a group of people who are going to, write checks for $10,000 or $20,000, where when you're looking at the Y or TLC, they've got a full pay model as part of what they do. And so they have families that are able to make those sizable donations. TLC just got a load of money from the Stewart Family Foundation. They had their kids at TLC. So that's kind of where that relationship comes from, right? So we're in a little bit of a different situation because we're not able to pull from our families as donors. So yeah, I just wanted to be clear because the CCAP funds are passed through federally to the states and the counties that come to us. So when you were asking the question about federal, CCAP is also federal, our USDA funding is also federal, but there's still multiple streams within the federal system. They're not all just one federal stream.
Right. Okay. All right. Good. So our other board member who couldn't be here tonight, he actually doesn't have a question. He just wanted to give you all some kudos. I'm going to read his statement. So Graham Steers, one of our longtime board members, says, "No question, just a comment. Thanks for the very well put together application and great service you provide to the community." So he just wanted to share that with you all. Are there any other questions? Yeah, he'll see.
I figure it's going to be on YouTube. I may as well thank him, right?
Yeah, he'll see this. Christina or Cassie, any other questions that you have? All right. So then let me ask one final financial question, because it's something that I how is, as you are developing this donor fund, what are the plans around, just in case to increase that? Are you putting a lot of that funding into your reserve? Is there an idea to increase that operating reserve to get to at least a 3-month type of situation, or what's the goal there?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. So this previous fiscal year, so our fiscal year ends August 31st. So when you guys get our budget, it's a little weird because it's calendar year versus what our actual fiscal year is. But at the end of this 23-24 fiscal year, August 31st, we had a little over 300,000 extra dollars from CCAP that were not needed because CCAP was so flush with cash that they were getting from ARPA at that point in time that we were able to bank a bit of that. While that's not 100% going to be an operating reserve kind of situation, it is money that the board has committed that if with the CCAP freeze for this year, if we're not able to get as much funding from CCAP for this year, that $300,000 will be used to backfill what we're losing due to the freeze.
Okay, good. All right. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to go ahead and stop our timer. We got about 2 minutes left, a little over 2 minutes, and I'm gonna give you, Amy and Jen, your 5 minutes to share whatever. You don't have to use it all, but whatever you want to share with us, and of course the larger community who can see this.
Yeah, so I'd like to start with our project with the Longmont Housing Authority. So we're currently collaborating with the Longmont Housing Authority. They're building 70 units of affordable housing in Northwest Longmont, and we're co-locating with a child care center there to serve the families that are a part of that housing grouping there, and also just that community, which is new. We're not in that part of Longmont at all, so it'll be a new resource for that part of the community. There's also not a lot of childcare resource in that part of the community either, so it is an opportunity for expansion that's happening there. And part of why I throw that out is we asked for about $20,000 more than what we're being funded at this year, and we're going to need to hire some staff early on for that project to be able to get it up and rolling and get classrooms, you know, stocked and things along those lines. Longmont Community Foundation made a $300,000 donation to us that's going to take care of supplies and some of our beginning operating funds, but not all of our operating funds. So I do throw that out, that there would, you know, additional funding from the city would be used to help with that. And the lease process that we've been engaged in has landed at a $15,000 expense on us that we were not prepared for, that there was not discussion of until kind of the last minute as we were sort of figuring out how things were going to work. So we're using, again, just that reserve money, right, to cover that, and the city's helping us with a little bit of it too. But being able to recoup that $15,000 for future years from city funding would be helpful as well. 32 more children that are coming through that child care center. Jen, do you want to throw in anything?
I don't have anything to say at a closing, but I did want to circle back. Cassie, you asked about what we've seen in the last year, and Amy spoke to the financial need, but we are also seeing a higher need with children with disabilities to get therapeutic services. That's a gap, and it costs an incredible amount of money. Some of these children need 3 or 4 services a week. And while some get the Medicaid, others are completely uninsured, and then there's transition from kids care to Medicaid, and there's a lapse in service. So that's something that we have seen kind of float to the top, that isn't just 1 or 2, but is becoming a real challenge. And it seems like now we're at the beginning of the school year, and that number is only going to increase as observations are made and more direct services in that area is provided through our staff to identify the issues and make referrals. So just wanted to offer that up as another area.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right. If there are no other questions or comments, I will thank you for joining us tonight. Appreciate your time. As you know, we will, the board will review the applications, and we will do our recommendations in November. Then they go before council in December, and ultimately it's council who decides on these recommendations. They typically don't change them, but they have the ability to. So I always throw in that caveat. But anyway, thank you for all you guys do, and have a good rest of your night.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. I just also want to say
Good night.
thanks to the city for all the support over the years too. I mean, it's been great. So
Thank you.
have a good night, everybody.
Good
Thanks,
night.
Amy.
Good
Thanks,
night.
Jen. Have a good
Bye-bye.
night. So as we get ready for our next folks who are already in the waiting room, which is great, the Y has 3 applications, and so we gave them more time. I think we gave them 40 minutes. Doesn't mean we have to use it. The way that Graham did the Y's question, I think that's the way that we're going to do it. He did early childhood first, summer day camp. He's got a question for each of these, and so if we can target our questions, Cassie, if you have them, start with early. If you have any questions for the early childhood program, then jump to the summer day camp questions if you have any, and finally the school age program. So that's kind of how we're gonna approach this one. And again, we give them 40 minutes. Doesn't mean we have to use it. I said about 35 minutes of Q&A, but we don't have to use that much time.
Yeah, I think we can go with Graham's, because I mean, I think the programs are looked really well put together, well run, well written up. So
Okay. Yeah,
and
if we get done early, then
why
we'll-
is easy to be familiar with what they're doing.
Right. Right. So yeah, if we get done early, we can have a break in between, and then because the next one after the Y also has 3 programs, and that's Colorado Statewide Coalition. So we will They also take 40 minutes. And again, we don't need to use all that. We can take breaks in between. But just wanted to let you know that I put those together. All right, I'm going to go ahead and let them in. All right, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to kind of set the context for the hearing, and then we will get going with introductions, and then I will start the timer. So the first thing you need to know is that this is being recorded. This is a public hearing, and will be on the City of Longmont's YouTube page. And because the Y is applying for 3 different programs, we're giving you a little more time than what you usually. It's only 15 minutes. We're going to give you 35. We don't have to use that 35. If the board doesn't have a ton of questions, then we will probably get done earlier and then give the board and staff a little break before we go to the next one. And so we're going to give, like I said, we have that 35 minutes. And then at the end of 35 minutes, or when we get done, we'll give you about 5 to 10 minutes to share anything you need to share. Again, don't have to use all of it. But that's kind of how we did it because you're providing three programs. Now, the way that we're going to do this is we're going to focus our questions first on your early education. Then we're going to move to the summer day camp, and then we're going to talk about your after school program. That's how we're going to approach this hearing. Questions for each of those in that time. So before we get started, love to get to know you. You introduce yourselves, we'll introduce ourselves, and then I'll start the timer.
I'll start. I'm Ruby Fairchild, and I'm the Executive Director for our Early Learning Programs here at the YMCA of NOCO.
Okay, thank you.
Sadia, you want to go?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Sadia Araksai Foster, and I am a district vice president with the YMCA, overseeing the community branch, which is like our early learning, our childcare, our summer camp. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah.
I'm Motria Ramos. I'm the Senior Director of Grants at the YMCA of Northern Colorado. So we're thrilled to be here, and we're so grateful for all the funding we've received from the City of Longmont Human Services funding throughout the years.
Awesome. And Brittany, we are introducing ourselves. If you don't mind introducing yourself.
Perfect. I am Brittany Vella. I'm the Executive Director of School Age Programs and Summer Day Camps. So I am all things childcare.
Awesome. All right. So, Cassie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Cassie Lau, and I'm a board member. It's nice to meet you all.
All right, Christina.
Good evening. I'm Christina Pacheco. I am the Director for Human Services at the city.
All right, and I'm Heriberto Mendoza. I am a Human Services Program Manager. Help run this process for the city. I've been doing it for about going on 7 years. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Graham's question, just because he sent it to me. And so Graham asked this of the first. So we're going to start with early childhood, Ed, and he says, it looks like you expect 10% of children not to graduate, not kindergarten ready. What is the primary reason? Again, most of these questions are based off your application, so that's what you put it. About 10% are not going to be kindergarten ready, and you want to know why. Why do you think that is?
Okay.
So did we put that they're not going to be kindergarten ready, or did we put a goal? Our goal is at least 80% will be kindergarten ready at the end of the school year.
I'm assuming you put 80% and he read then that means the rest are not.
Well, I think our goal is that 80% will be kindergarten ready.
Okay.
At least 80% will be kindergarten ready. But usually, I mean, Ruby can speak to this. Most of our children are kindergarten ready. Maybe there are some that have some kind of needs that I'm not
IEPs.
aware of.
So we do
right.
have some, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, go ahead, you can answer that question.
At least 80 to 85% of our children will be ready to transition to kindergarten, but we do have some underlying children that have some IEPs and some differing abilities that we are working on, that we're referring to mental health. And those are the ones that may not have completed that process and might not be ready in transitioning to kindergarten. We do have a few kiddos on IEPs, and we do have some on speech therapists as well, therapy as well.
And so I'm assuming this is based on the TS Gold assessment tool.
Yes, we are using TS Gold also as an assessment as the assessment tool, but we offer two parent teacher conferences. We do one in the fall and one in the spring. In the fall is when we is the goal setting time, when we're like basically from September to October, we kind of do our assessment on where the children are. And we use creative curriculum. So we do have the creative curriculum is actually linked to the TS Gold. And so when we do our study units, it includes an evaluation plan on where the kids are. So for example, when they're doing an activity such as doing a leaf collage and the skills that they are actually learning by doing that activity, we plugged it into our creative curriculum that is linked to TS Gold, and it will actually complete the assessment. So then by the time we do our parent teacher conferences, we have a better idea of where the child is in terms of, of letters and numbers and social emotional skills. And then we set up a goal with our parents. And when we do our spring parent teacher conferences, we put together all the portfolios and we take a look at where the child is prior to transitioning to kindergarten, whether there are things that we still need to work with parents with.
Thank you. Cassie or Christine, do you have any other questions around the early childhood education?
Do you have any questions, Cassie? No, okay. So yeah, one of the questions that we're asking agencies this year that's a little different, just based on the need really outpacing the resources that we have, and this being a competitive grant process. And I'll ask you this for your three programs. What is the impact if you do not receive funding in this area?
The impact if we don't receive the funding in this particular area is like it limits the resources that we're able to offer the families. Like we do have resources that we connect them with mental health, for example, and the speech. But we also, a lot of our families, this is their home. We're connected to them, it's like we connect them to vision testing. We do have to have the vision, the dental, all this health screenings, okay? And I know that some of those screenings is actually going to cost us some money. For example, the hearing screening, we'd like to be able to offer this to all of our preschool, but right now that's a little bit of a that's a little bit of an expense that we would be able to use this funding to help with screening. And in addition, we also offer a lot of bilingual resources for our families. We have a bilingual library. We have we offer PI nights, which is parent information and education night. But offering this to our families also cost a little bit, when we offer them childcare and things like that. So I feel that this funding will really help us reach out more to our families.
So if I could just add something to that, if we don't receive this funding, our organization will be stretched financially a lot.
Sure.
We've had a very challenging year. There's skyrocketing food prices. Inflation is super high. There is a CCAP freeze. We have a huge CCAP gap in terms of that amount that we are not paid from the CCAP provider, which is close to $500,000 a year. In addition to that, in Boulder County alone, through all of our programs, City of Longmont plus all of our other sites, we provide almost 2.5 million in financial assistance through primarily our childcare programs. So, but the bigger impact will be that the children need this program and families need this program. And we offer an exceptional, enriching environment. We offer a community, and we have some very exciting things happening at the YMCA of Colorado that's new this year. And we can talk about that later, unless you would like me to address that right now. But that all impacts everything that we would be able to do. If we, for example, we will need funds this year to take children from summer day camps up to a phenomenal, amazing experience that some low income children would never have, because we purchased a brand new camp, which we are using for both day camps and overnight camps. And children attending our summer day camps will have the opportunity where we will bus them up to Camp Tumbleson Lake, and they will have a magical experience in the mountains that they would not have been able to do. And if we don't have that funding, then we might not be able to do things like that. But we
And
can talk
Christine, I
about day
forgot,
camp later.
and I forgot to mention, Christine, it's very important to note too that this is a heavily CCAP demographics. Our preschool actually have more than 50% are actually in the CCAP program.
Okay, so the travel to the summer camp, that is not specific to early childhood, correct? You
That's
said, I think you said
Correct,
after
but it's
school?
gonna,
Okay, got
correct,
it.
but it's just gonna stretch us financially through all programs.
Okay, okay, thank you.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead. Is there any other questions on early child? I guess the whole question is how many? So you said 50% are
CCAP.
CCAP. What makes
Uh-huh.
up the rest of the other 50%?
So the other 50% are private pay, and we also offer financial assistance. And we literally started our partnership with the CCSB. So in addition to CCAP, we also started we already had a partnership with EFA, but extending that to CCSP and the financial Motre, approximately how many? I know in my preschool how many FA, but we do offer financial assistance in addition to the families receiving childcare assistance.
Correct. I don't know the exact number, but one thing to note is that because of the CCAP freeze, we are offering a lot more financial aid to families who
Mhm.
cannot apply for CCAP this year. And we have families that just miss the CCAP cutoff by a little bit.
Yes.
So we offer so much financial aid. And when I say 2.5 million, that does not include our CCAP gap loss. That loss for us is probably about 500,000 a year in Boulder County.
So yeah, but in your application you talk about serving 92 children, right? In your early childhood program in Longmont. And so about 45 of those are CCAP, roughly speaking, right? And then the rest are private pay. And of those other 45, about how many are receiving financial aid? All of them? Most of them? Part of them?
So
A third.
About a third of them?
Mm-hmm.
So about 15 of them? Okay.
Yeah.
And then are the rest just full on pay, or are they some other
Employee
program?
discounts. We also have employee discounts also, and our employees receive 50%. And I did forget to mention, Aliberto, that all of our families enrolled in our preschool program also receive a membership to the YMCA. So that is an additional resource for our families to utilize.
yeah.
Okay, good. I just was curious because we started talking about 50% are CCAP. So where are the rest? So I'm gonna ask a question that actually Graham asked the previous, because we have time and then look and keeping track of the time here. You talk about these oh, actually you talk about these uh parent conference. Do you get any information from them about that help you improve the program? Do you guys do any type of?
Oh, yes.
Okay, talk to me a little about
Yes.
that.
Very good. I forgot to mention that we also have a parent committee. So basically, this is a bilingual school. My goal is to have a bilingual teacher in each of my classrooms. And at the same time, I wanted my parents to be represented in our parent committee. So we do have a group of volunteer parent that meets once a month, and they put in their input. They help us. They help us with event. But basically, this representative group of parents help us put together a plan on how we can improve our the services that we provide, how we can reach more families, or how we can engage more families. So we do have that, and we're also in the process of actually accreditation, where we're actually going to release a bunch of surveys where the families will actually let us know, okay, these are the areas that we may need help with, or these are the areas that we can volunteer. So yes, we do have an ongoing communication with our families.
Awesome, thank you. I thought that was a good question that
welcome.
we asked the previous agency. So if there's no more questions about education, I want to move on because we want to keep us going to talk about your summer day camp. So Cassie, do you have any questions about the summer day camp?
So my main question is, I guess the need is greater. The need of the student is greater than what you can offer. So how many children do you have to turn away? And if you do, where do they go? Because I mean, I remember struggling to figure out where to put my daughter in the summer. So
Yeah, we try not to turn away any students, or any members or any children. We try to take in all the children. Our capacity at our location is pretty high, to where I don't know if we would ever be able to fill the capacity. So we put it so high because we want to have fill the need. All of our children that participate, about 90% of them are on CCAP. The 10% are paying families. Yeah. So we take as many children as we can.
thank
Yeah,
you.
so also I would just add to that, because we are adding Camp Tumbleson Lake as an additional summer day camp location, we will be able to offer more spaces at that camp. And that's, I don't know if you're familiar with that camp, but we bought it from the Boy Scouts of America earlier this year, and it's in Ward, Colorado. It's 45 minutes from the Boulder Y, so it's probably, I don't know, Brittany, how far it is from the Longmont Y.
It's approximately 45 minutes from the Longmont Y, and we're running a
So
resident camp and day camp there.
yeah, so that's going to add a lot of spaces for children. So there will be exciting options.
You guys used to know that as Camp Tahosa.
And what's your total capacity, or what's your total enrollment number, like just average over the last 5 or so years for your summer camp in Longmont?
In Longmont, our capacity is 300, but we house about 150 children each year.
About 150 a year. Okay.
Yeah.
So I asked this question last year because last year was the first time that you all applied for summer day camp. And I asked this question because I think it's a relevant question. So this funding, this priority area is called education and skill building. And the idea behind it is, it's really to create education academic slots, whether it be, early childhood or some sort of, something with an academic bent to increase the skills and education of children and adults. We can also fund, and we have funded some adult academic education with this. So talk to me about how this summer camp is not just a day camp with the idea of childcare, but also talk to me about how you work increasing or maintaining academic structure for the kids so they don't have that summer slide, or what kind of things do you do to ensure that? Because again, this funding is really around how do we improve graduation rates, how do we improve academic proficiency in our community.
Yeah. So in our summer day camps, we have a set of curriculum, and we're pretty strict on our curriculum. We do things like STEM projects, which is mathematics and engineering. We have a social emotional learning curriculum as well. It's called Pop Culture Hero. And in this day and age, with social emotional learning, that is huge amongst our children and teens to get them ready for adulthood. We also do various things like life skills. We do arts and crafts. We do healthy living that teaches them about their body and what we put into their body and how to utilize that. We also do active play games that teaches them about exercise and how we can use our bodies and how we keep our bodies healthy. We have global inclusion, where we teach about different parts of the world and what that culture looks like and how we can bring that into our programs. So we do various things to teach children life skills and relate that back to education, social emotional learning, mathematics, engineering, all of it.
Yeah, and we also have an amazing, amazing garden in Longmont, which is science and agriculture and nutrition, like Brittany mentioned. So,
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
again, if this portion of your request is not funded, what impact would it have on those 150 students or children that are enrolled in your program?
Oh my gosh, huge. Unlike early childhood education, right, we're dealing with school age children, and once these children age out of our programs, we need to make sure that they are set up as they are within our programs to age out of our programs and be successful. So the impact would be huge. 90% of our children that we serve, of that 150, is on CCAP or financial assistance. These families need it. They need somewhere where their children can go and be safe and thrive. And then when their children age out of our programs, they know that they were equipped with the tools that we have given them and provided them, where they maybe become staff of our programs, or they are equipped to go out into into society and just have a solid foundation from where they came from the Y.
yeah, I would just like to add one other thing. I mean, childcare, including summer care, it is an economic issue, and it's an economic issue for families. So without programs like we offer, I mean, parents would not be able to work. So there's even a larger impact to all of this.
And then Graham's only question for the day camp was Brown. He says, is there any religious content in your summer camp programming?
There is not.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. No,
But it is written in our mission that if you look at our mission of the YMCA, that we are founded by Christian principles.
Yeah.
Right. But there's no,
yeah.
go ahead.
It's an organization for everyone.
Yes, for
Yeah.
everyone.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, the
YMCA
has evolved. We
Yes.
used to be called the Young Men's Christian Association of America, or Boulder Valley, way back, but our name, we go by YMCA of Northern Colorado, and we serve absolutely everyone.
We serve
And there's-
everybody.
Yep.
We serve based on our core values.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Any more questions about the summer day camp? All right, then I'm gonna move us on. Thank you for hanging in with us. I'm gonna move us on to your after school program. Any questions from Cassie or Christina?
Not from me.
Okay. So Graham's only question, and this is a good question about tracking. He says there were no client gender or race info given. Why not? Do you not track these? And I'm gonna jump to that application to see whether he missed it or whether you don't have it.
So, I mean, one of the reasons we don't have it is because we recently changed our database to a new system, and it's been a little bit difficult to get it, but we're working on that. And I think that, I mean, by observation, I think both Brittany and Ruby can speak to the diversity in our programs.
Okay. And then his follow-up question to that was, how does staff handle non-conforming gender expressions and issues within the diversity of your students or the folks that are taking part in this after-school school age program?
See,
Ruby,
can
would
you
you like?
I can repeat it if you want.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, could
how
you?
does staff handle non-conforming gender expressions and issue, i.e., changes in pronouns or unexpected gender expressions?
Yeah, I can speak to that just based on our social emotional learning curriculum. A part of that curriculum is to educate our youth on pronouns and gender, just giving them information based on gender norms nowadays. And we are accepting of all gender norms, and we take that very seriously, and our staff do as well. And it's not only educating our children on that so that children are not being bullied, but it's also educating our staff on that as well, so that children that come into our programs or staff that come into our programs are being treated equally, and are being, called the pronouns that they would like to be called.
Okay, thank you. So, Shay, you want to answer your question? I think same question, but
So just just the same question, how many youth or students are enrolled in your program, and what impact would it have if this portion of your application were not funded directly on the youth that are enrolled?
I mean, I could probably speak to this more because I am in school age where youth are more, where it's more prevalent. We currently serve, I believe, 10 youth that are within that community, and it would affect them greatly. They come to us and they feel that they are welcome. They feel that they are created equal. They feel safe, and that is our goal. That is our mission.
So how many total youth do you serve a day, or are enrolled in your program?
Oh, how many youth are enrolled in our program? Anywhere from a day, anywhere from 75 to 80 youth.
75 to 80 youth a day. Okay. And so what impact would not having this part of your application funded, what impact would it have on your day-to-day operations?
Huge impact.
So huge
just
in
like,
terms of like some examples.
Yeah. Just like our summer day camp, 85 to 90 85% of those families are CCAP or FA families. They rely on our programs. These are single parents. They need our programs to be able to sustain their families. These children need our programs in order to come to a safe, positive environment where they are able to age out and become successful adults.
all right. Any other questions about the school age program? Oh, Lorena, we are still in the previous one. Can you wait a little bit to come for CSBC?
Yeah, so I have to like log out and then come back in.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right, any more questions from Cassie or Christina?
Well, I guess one that I had that's sort of off what Grant asked is, do you do outreach to other like faiths at all? Like, I don't know. I mean, there is like Muslim, Jewish, or there isn't. I mean, there isn't really. I know that's not a big population here, but I just wondered if there, because I know you do a lot of outreach.
I
So
wanted to
what,
speak a little bit at our preschool, sorry, because I'm so for diversity. I
yeah.
love that I have families from India, and I have families from China, and I have families from Uzbekistan, and so I celebrate them all. It's like, I'm so excited to welcome these families and to let them be a part of our parent committee.
So Catherine, to answer your question, like Ruby said, our organization, if you know, the YMCA is a global brand that's known for inclusion and diversity and celebrating everyone and welcoming everyone. So our programs reflect not only inclusion, but diversity, not only through the curriculum that we do throughout the year, but also with our family programming. So that's 150% something we not only celebrate, but that we honor and we show in everything we do and all of our work. It is part of our founding principles is to include everyone and to celebrate all.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we have a lot of refugee families who send children to the Y, and we don't require proof of any kind of, you know, uh, what is the word? I'm sorry.
Documentations. The
Correct.
documentation and the paperwork, we just,
Yeah.
we take them.
Right.
All right, thank you. So, if there are no more questions, we'll give you your 9 minutes because the next group is up at 7:20. So you get 9 minutes. You don't have to use all of it, but I'll go ahead and let you take that time for anything you want to say or add.
I mean, like I said, it's it's an exciting time at the YMCA because we're adding YMCA Camp Tumbleson Lake, and we want to give children from the city of Longmont the opportunity to experience the mountains. And we never turn anyone away for inability to pay, so this funding is extremely important. And it's been a challenging year. It's more and more families are requesting financial aid. There's a CCAP freeze. Uh, you know, Families are squeezed. Our donors, our donations are down a little bit. So, we really appreciate the funding from the City of Longmont Human Services Board through the years. And like I said, thank you. Does Ruby or Sadia, would any of you like to add anything else?
I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. And like Motria shared, just today we were talking about programming for next summer for more specialized camps, more specialized curriculum, more specialized camps, meaning like different things would be like STEM or would be enrichment. So it's really going to be an exciting year for 2025. We're also looking at opening up more locations for families to have access. And one of the things Motria said, and I really need you guys to hear because most people don't know this, is we never turn away a family. No matter what, if a family needs some sort of financial assistance, some sort of we need help, we need somewhere to go, we need childcare, even if it's at last minute, we never turn families away. We will always find a way to help that family. And that's one of the things we take pride in. So thank you. I'm not sure if Brittany or Ruby want to share.
I do want to say thank you because of your help from last year. We were able to reach out to more families. We do treasure this collaboration with you guys and just very thankful for the support that you give our programs.
Right.
Yes, and just to piggyback off of Ruby, yeah, we appreciate you guys so much. You guys allowed so many children into our programs, so many families able to, these single parents able to work, and these kids an opportunity to grow within themselves, but also become confident and feeling safe and just providing a positive experience for these children that would not have that otherwise.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all for hanging in there with us. It was a long interview. Appreciate your time and thank you for all that you do here in Longmont.
Well, I want to invite you for a family fiesta on Saturday in celebration of the Hispanic Heritage Month. Look at me. Like, come on, join us.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
very
much.
much.
Thank you,
All right.
everyone.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. So, we got about 5 minutes till 7:20. I'll let Lorena in and tell her we're gonna take a little 5-minute break.
That'd be great.
And so we'll start at 7:20, but let me let her in and I'll just let her know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Lorena, we're gonna take a little 5-minute break because we got a little bit of time before 7:20, before your scheduled hearing. Let the board and staff, take a little break, and we will start exactly at 7:20. So I'll be back at about 7:19. Okay?
Done.
All right, I'll be right back. All right. It's about 7:19. We'll get started here at 7:20. While we wait for Cassie, Lorena, let me just give you a little bit of context of the hearing. You've been here before, but as you know, this is being recorded and will be on our YouTube page at some point. So because CSPC, Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition, is asking for 3 different programs, we've given you a little more time, around 35 minutes of Q&A. We don't have to use all that time. We just wanted to make sure that we allocated it. And then we'll give you between 5 and 10 minutes for you to share anything you want to share. And again, don't have to use all that time, but because you're asking for 3. And the way that we're going to do it is we're going to go ahead and start with questions first about PASO providers, advanced school outcomes, Éxito, and then your new program, Grupo de Apoyo the Parent Cohort Course. Just want to talk a little bit about that as well. So with that being said, does anybody have, I'm messing with my timer here. Why don't you introduce yourself to the folks so they know I messed with this timer, and then we'll get started.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Kathy, you were at the convening we had, right? That Christina, you were leading?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so it's good to see you again. So Lorena Garcia, I'm the CEO of the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition. I've been with CSPC since March of 2018. And I think that's all that's relevant for this conversation.
Awesome. Cassie, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Cassie Lau, and I'm one of the board members, and we've met before.
Awesome.
Yep, Christina Pacheco, Human Services Director.
All right. And then, so you know me, Eliberto Mendoza, Human Services Program Manager. All right. I think I figured this out. Sorry.
It's
Doing it for.
It's late. It's late. It's
calmed
okay.
down. It's calmed
Yeah,
down.
no, I got this.
As tired as, yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Again, 35 minutes. We don't have to use all that time, but we can go ahead and get started. But let's start with Paso. Does board and actually this is one of the times that Graham didn't ask me any questions, so I don't have any questions from Graham. Cassie or Christina, do you have any questions about Paso?
Well, so you have good statistics on how the children have the reading levels and things, right? But is there any way you could compare them against children who aren't in your program?
So yeah, that's a great question. So when we did that study to demonstrate that there was that impact for students that were in Paso versus out of Paso, that was done between 2013 and 2018. So it was a 5-year study that was an external study with an evaluation firm. And that's what actually gave us our evidence-based status. We are not able to actually at this moment do another study like that because that study itself cost us over $1.5 million to do. And so it's just it's really, really expensive to do a study where you have like a control group and you evaluate the students that are not in it and those are out. And so at this point, we just rely on the data that we have about the program that we do. And that's why we are very huge sticklers on fidelity.
Thank you.
So Lorena, you've been,
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
You've been part of our nonprofit engagement sessions and know that, we've talked about really the need outpacing the resources that we have. And so what would be the impact to this specific program if your application was not funded?
We wouldn't be able to serve FFN providers in Longmont.
Okay.
So with that in mind, I just have how many did you serve last year, and what do you know any other outcomes how they're doing now? Because I know you do a 6-month thing. How is that going for them? Because I mean, ultimately, this is about And the reason why it's in the education priority area and not necessarily the self-sufficiency priority area is because this is about helping train FFN providers become better educators, help their kids be more successful as they transition into a traditional school setting. And so I just want to check in how this is what the third or fourth year you've been funded, and just wanted to see, can you talk a little bit to the success of FASO in Longmont?
Yeah, I would say that Longmont is probably one of the places that we have the most success in, like it's easiest for us to recruit in Longmont. And one of the reasons why I'm guessing and what we're thinking is why it's so easy to recruit in Longmont is because the success of the program, the word gets out. They're talking to each other and they're telling each other about Baso. And we have folks from Longmont, and not only Longmont, but people who live like in Firestone and Dacono that take care of children out of Longmont hear about this program. And so they're already reaching out to us before it's even registration time saying, how do I get into this program? As far as the continued outcomes, we have it's really exciting because part of our model of work is we believe that if we're able to provide folks with this technical support, this technical assistance, professional development, and in that they're recognizing and identifying and able to identify the areas where they want to see improvement in their systems and their societies, they will then want to go into our systemic change programming. And so a lot of these FFN providers, specifically from, we generally have the largest cohort of FFN providers from Longmont coming to the Cuspide or going to our lobby day, things like that, because they're just so engaged and invested. And what I'll say with direct relation back to the child outcomes and healthy upbringings, there's one particular story. There is a provider from 3 years ago who graduated from one of our online programs she couldn't attend one in person. We didn't have any in person, but she attended the online program. And since then, she's really done a lot of work within her own family and spreading the knowledge because she's not the only FFN provider in her family. Her daughters are also FFN providers. And I believe it's her sister-in-law, but I'm not entirely sure. But she started hosting little cafecitos just on her own about how to what are the things that she's learning that she wanted to share to the other people around her that are FFN providers.
Awesome.
Oh, how many have we served? If you give me literally 30 seconds, I can pull up my spreadsheet. But you can ask another question while I pull it up.
Well, yeah, as you're playing, I'm sure you have that too. I think one of the cool things about this is that people get to apply for, you know, a certification, right? And you know, you help them prepare for that process. How is that going? Are you seeing folks? You know, again, you can't control whether they apply or not, but I know you encourage and you work and you help prepare. How are people applying and are they getting certified?
Yeah, they are. They are applying. I don't have the numbers of exactly how many. I do know that we've supported several, but I don't know the exact number. I will say from last year, what we served the providers that actually live in Longmont, we served 22, and then we served 9 providers that serve children who live in Longmont.
Okay. Okay. Great. Any other questions about FASO?
Yeah, could you estimate, Lorena, of those numbers that you gave us, how many children, how many slots, for lack of a better word, how many children are being served by those and I'm sorry, my dog decided to play, of those, 22, 9, 30, 31?
Yeah, that's a moving target. And the reason why it's such a moving target is because the nature of FFN is they jump in and serve as needed.
Yeah.
And so at the time that we did the intake form, Mm-hmm. At that time, they were collectively, they were caring for 86 children.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And it wasn't all at the same time. So
Right.
like some of them had different shifts, some of them were some days and some were the other days. And
Mhm.
but we don't know like if that's the same number that they were caring for now, if they're now or if they like when they graduated, if it increased or decreased, because it's so fluid, especially
Right.
when part of the thing is we imagine, and I think this is something we're trying to figure out, like, do we want to do an exit question in FOSTA? Like, how many how many kids are you caring for? Because we know that particularly this last FOSTA class and the one before is like right in the middle of the statewide CCAP freeze.
Right, right. Yeah, and that kind of was kind of where I was headed with that question is that you know, in total, like what is the impact? Because we suspect or we know that that at least 60% of our children, 0 to 5 in Longmont are in FFN care. So it would be good to have kind of a clearer picture of just numbers wise what we're looking at, so that you know, as we plan to, you know, how we're going to meet that need, we would have that that idea of numbers.
Yeah. We did this, we tried it a while ago. It was probably like 4 years ago. We spent a full year going back and calling back every single FFN provider that went through FOSTA since its initiation in 2006.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And we reached a lot and we didn't reach a lot. And so, and it shows also just the transient nature that comes with being an FFN provider and low incomes. And, you know, many use cricket phones, which the minute that you don't pay your bill, you have to get a new phone number essentially. So like, there's a lot of like, unless you pay a fee to get the same number, it's ridiculous. But, so it was telling for us to see how many were still, I don't have that data. I can't tell you, but I do remember being surprised at those that we did reach, how many of them continued caring for kids. And, you know, I think it goes to what we already know, that FFN providers do it because it's needed and because it's out of the love of their hearts.
Any more questions about Paso? All right, then in order to keep time, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the Éxito program. Cassie, do you have any questions about Éxito?
Oh, well, I mean, it sounds like a great idea, great program. And I was just wondering, how do you recruit the parents? Like, are there any qualifications? And then I guess the second question is, do a lot of them like drop out? They get too busy? Like, how long to be worth your while, how long do you need them to stay with you?
Yeah, those are great questions. So we recruit our the parents in Éxito through old school grassroots style of going to parks, going into communities where we know the majority of Spanish speaking parents live. We knock doors. Our Éxito coordinators do interviews with parents to see what their readiness is. They talk about what do they do for their kids already? What do they want to learn? How do they want to see, like, what do they want to see in their child development? Like, what are the concerns they have for when their kids go to school? All of those things. And as far as retention, there's always dropout. There's always students that don't complete the course for X or Y reason. Many of those reasons that we see, the largest reason why parents and also providers from PASO don't complete the course is because their work schedules change. And so they're not, like, their employers won't let them continue participating in an hour slot. We are actually doing a pilot this year. So we're doing it 2 times where we're seeing if maybe truncating the course from being like once a month into being like multiple times a week. So we're testing to see if the outcomes and the retention and the desire for parents to stick around increases with a shorter course with the same content, but also measuring is the knowledge gain the same and the skills building the same. And that's only possible with our 6-month post self-reflective survey. So we won't know really like the direct impact of the shorter course for another 18 months.
Great answer. Thank you.
And so what impact would decreased funding, you know, a smaller amount funded or not funded have in this particular area in Longmont?
The same. Our programming in Longmont is only because you fund us.
Okay. Okay. So 100% of the funds fund the program. It's not funded in any other way through the agency?
Not for our Longmont, ex-officio and PASO programs.
Okay, so that's interesting. So because when I look at your program budget, it's a decent sized budget, right? And Longmont doesn't represent a huge amount of it. But what you're saying is it does represent a amount for Longmont.
Yeah, well, we do ex-officio in 4 different communities, and we do PASO in 6 different communities. And most of these communities, it's because either the counties or the cities, or we have specific community foundation funding for those areas. And so that's what, for example, with Longmont, we're able to continue doing this work in Longmont because of the support that you give us. I think one thing to consider for us also, as we're actually going through our budgeting for 2025 right now, and we're figuring out knowing across the board with Longmont and Boulder County that there's going to be cuts. We're also trying to figure out how do we get our general operating funders to increase their funds for us so that way we can supplement any sort of like specific government grant cuts. And I don't have any confirmations yet, but we do understand that there are going to be cuts coming. And so we are trying to preempt those with like talking with our institutional funders and saying, you're just going to have to give us more, basically.
Well, I did like I'm gonna break a little bit off the program cost questions and go a little bit at agency level questions because I did look at your budget for next year or the budget you presented, the agency, not the program. I look at both, but I look at your agency level budget. And it seems like, you know, in the past, and you still are, you know, one of the questions I've always had is that CSPC was very heavily foundation based funding. But it seems you've increased your state funding. Can you talk to me about that? What is that about?
Yeah, our state funding is predominant, like the vast majority and the actual like the major increase in our budget is to be the implementer of the state FFN grant program. So the $6.5 million that has been allocated to that program is going to go through CSPC. Part of it is going to fund PASO in new areas, but the vast majority of that is going through CSPC to other organizations that are serving FFN. So that's why we have this spike in state grants because of that particular program that we serve as an intermediary for.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering because, you know, for the last few years, that's the thing that I've noticed in your budget is, you know, heavy foundation, some local, right, and you're still working on the donor base. And I know that when you merge with El Paso, you know, that's kind of that goal of building that donor base. But when I noticed that 2.5 that came from state, I was wondering about that. Okay. So talk to us about ex-officio's outcomes in Longmont. What have you seen there? Have you seen how have these parent groups, these parent leaders, and have you learned? Is there any follow-up survey on how their kids do once they get into school? Because there's a lot of work around helping them understand and navigate school resources and helping them prepare their kids to be successful in school. has there been any work done on, okay, you went through Éxito, kids in school, how is that, how are you doing with your students?
So we don't ask them about school outcomes. We ask them about their practices as parents. So we ask them when by the time they're finishing the course, we ask them and we compare it to their when they enter the course, like how often do you read to your child? How often are you playing? How often are you telling stories or singing with your child? How often are you both experiencing something new? So we ask that to see like if throughout the course they're actually practicing these new ideas about how to help get their kids ready for this experience of education.
Okay.
And for the most part, across the board, there's a positive increase in activity and amount of time they read with their kids, and even just activities. We have like open-ended questions of like, what are some new things that you've done with your kids? There's new things where they're like, well, I've had my son cook with me, where before I just made him sit at the table. So things like that, where it's like these new practices of how do they get these experiences of tactile learning.
Cool. Great. Thank you. Any other questions about Éxito? All right, then let's shift gears and we're gonna address your final application, which is a new application to us. Is it a Grupo Apoyo? Is that what it's called?
Grupo de apoyo. Yeah.
Grupo de Apoyo. All right. So do you want to, Cassie or Christina, do you have any questions about this program?
No, I don't, not specifically.
Yeah, no, I want to hear you talk about it, but
All right. So why don't you give us a quick rundown? Because again, this is a new program to us. Is it a new program to you, or is it something you've been doing throughout other CSPC sites, and you're bringing it to Longmont? Yeah, I'd love to hear a little more about it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So we have been doing Grupo de Apoyo since 2019. And this is a program that specifically works with parents that have children with disabilities and helping them understand how to navigate Medicaid and early childhood and their IEPs and all of the programming that is offered and done through Grupo de Apoyo is in Spanish. So what we're wanting to do is we are taking this model that we've had, which was largely online, and we're wanting to bring it more into like in-person, locality focused into communities like Longmont, for example. And we've had a lot of parents engage from Longmont as well. And what this program is doing is it's going through a curriculum that trains parents into being like basically passengers on the train of their kids' development into being the conductors. And so it helps them to become the advocate. Whereas before they would always be looking for an advocate who can help me like talk with this provider about how to work with my kid, or I don't think this provider knows how to work with my kid, I don't know what to do, to being that leader and knowing how to have those conversations, what language to use, what questions to ask, and then also to be able to serve as that advocate for their community and their neighbors and friends.
In the educate, like helping them navigate that educational and other worlds.
Mm-hmm. Really, it's highly focused specifically on Medicaid and the education system in early childhood.
And so has that program started in Longmont yet, or is that?
No, it hasn't.
But it's not a startup. It's something you've been doing elsewhere, and you just. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's good to know. Okay, we typically don't fund startups in Longmont, but if it's a program that's been done elsewhere and you're just bringing it in, and that's a different story. That okay.
Yep, that was the question I had. Yep.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why why we thought like let's add it here is because we've had like I said, we have several parents already from Longmont that are really engaged in Grupo de Apoyo. They always have to come all the way to Denver for trainings, for programming, for support, for resources. And then sometimes they have to go all the way to Lakewood. And so we want to like make it more available to people where they live. And so that's why we're hoping that we're able to bring it into Longmont.
All right. So I'm actually going to change gears because I'm looking at my evaluation and I had a question. So I'm going to go back up to the agency level. And I'm sorry, I'm going to change a little bit of gears here because I just noticed it because I feel proud of myself. I read these yesterday and got all my evaluations done before tonight, which is not always doesn't always happen. But I did get them done yesterday. And I did have a concern and a question about your financial reserves. What is, do you all have a policy? And if so, what does that look like for operating reserves?
So our reserve goal, we don't necessarily have like a board stated policy, but the board is very, very much interested in making sure that we at all moments in life have like at least 6 months of operating
Okay.
to keep us functioning. What's happened recently is because of the CDET grant, the grant that we're operating as an intermediary, it took 6 months for them to give us our first reimbursement. So we actually had to then go into our reserves and spend down to actually then be able to be the intermediary for the Department of Early Childhood. And so we are now having to work to, like my board and I were working to figure out how are we rebuilding this reserve that we worked so hard to secure. And at one point we had a year's worth of reserves. And so that's where we are right now. We're just like, we had to do this because these state grants are 100% reimbursable. And we are in this position of, if we don't spend it, we don't get it. And if we don't get it, and if we don't do it, then the program's a failure. So I will say, like, thank goodness we had those reserves, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to do the work that's necessary for this FFN grant program.
Great, thank you. I'm updating my comments. So as you tell, I'm updating exams. I had a question. I was like, hey, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Sorry to jump. I know we were on the program side, but I saw that on my evaluation and I said, oh, I need to ask this question. So how many parents do you think you can, so right now you're working just a couple of parents, a couple of families. What is your expectation of bringing this Grupo de Apoyo to Longmont? How many parents do you think you can serve? How did you so you got those two parents, how do you determine the need? What other things are telling you, yeah, we need to bring this to Longmont?
One is we're being asked to. So we're being asked by, whether it's like our participants in PASO or in the PASO Academy, we're being asked, like, can you please come here because I can't go all the way over there. The other thing is just across, it's not even, and this is one of the things where it's like, we try to coalesce where our programming is, right? So if we're working one program in Longmont, we really want more of our programs in Longmont. We don't want to just have one touch. And so the other thing is just identifying if we are already in these different areas with 2 or 3 programs or one program, we want to do more there. And so given the fact that we've been asked by parents to come to Longmont, the fact that we're seeing, for like in Longmont, for example, and in the Boulder County area, we're seeing that 2 of the childcare providers that serve children with disabilities don't have space or they shut down. And so then in that case, we're like, holy cow, like there's a need here that our parents need to know if they're finding a new space, if they're finding a new place, like where do they go? So there's all of these different things that for us it says, let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can bring Grupo de Apoyo there. I think going back to the question you generally ask, Christina, if we don't get this funding, what's going to happen? I mean, it means yet, right? It means we can't bring Grupo de Apoyo there yet, unless we're able to find additional funding somewhere else, which we're constantly looking for. So that's just what happens there.
What kind of community partnerships do you have to kind of ensure that you get enough referrals? Like I get that like word of mouth works. And yeah, what other kind of community partnerships do you have?
We have several community partnerships. Can't name a list off the top of my head at this moment. But what I will say is that we generally see parents come to us again, while word of mouth for us is actually our greatest strength. That's how the majority of our parents come to us. We also like intend, like if Grupo de Apoyo, we are able to set up Grupo de Apoyo in Longmont, like the partnerships that we have within early childhood and the partnerships that we have in and around even Boulder County, saying send your parents to come here. Whether it's the organizations that around Sister Carmen, or if it's the I forget what the name is in Longmont, but it's the county agency that's specifically dedicated to working with families that have disabilities.
Oh, Association of Community Living?
Yes, that's it. Thank you. So those are things where we intend to, and we've talked with them also about like, we want to do this. We want to make sure we're not stepping on your toes or anything. And I mean, part of the fact is like, not very many people will work with Spanish speaking families, and then much less thinking that they're undocumented. And so that's where we come in.
Yep, that was my question.
All right. So any more questions for Lorena about the programs? Thank you for hanging in there for all these questions, Lorena. Appreciate it. So if there's no more questions, I will give you about 9 minutes, because that's how much time we have left for your allocated time. You don't have to use all of it, but yeah, you can take the rest.
I don't have much else to say. I think I know that you all have very difficult decisions to make, and I think I appreciate the warning and the heads up that you have all given us, that these are, and with enough time for us to be able to start thinking through contingency plans. And so I do definitely appreciate that. While I hope that we don't have to make drastic contingency plans, whatever the outcome is, we'll accept it, obviously. If it's a good outcome for us, we'll be more excited. If it's not, we're going to keep applying in the future. So thank you so much for this time. And I don't envy you all in this process. We're going through it with the CDEC grant right now, and it can be heartbreaking at times. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing, and Cassie for your service on this board.
Thank you for all the work you do.
Yes, we appreciate the work you do, and thank you. Thank you for telling us about your outcomes and what differences you're making in people's lives. All right. Well, thank you, and have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, Lorena.
All right. So actually, we're a little bit early, and I'm thinking about just letting in the last two folks are here.
That would be great.
Yes,
Yeah, that
we don't need a break.
Yeah, we can get done early, and we can be done. And Cassie, I think, I'm not sure what other things you're in, but this is you got a break for a few weeks, and we're going to something else. So, all right, I'm gonna let Barbara and Crystal in.
Which places? Been in an office chair all day, and
All right, Crystal and Barbara, we have decided to let you in a little early because we've been doing this for some time, and if we can get done early tonight, that would be great.
I'm sure it's been a long night.
It has been. It's been great conversations, but yes, it has been definitely a long night. So the first thing I want to let you know, Crystal and Barbara, is that we are being recorded. This is going to be on the city's YouTube page. Hopefully so other board members can see it that weren't here tonight, that couldn't make it tonight. And we're going to go about 15 minutes of Q&A, and then if there's time, we'll give you 5 minutes to share anything you want to share. Before we start with that, though, love to have you introduce yourselves, and then we'll introduce ourselves, and then we'll get going.
Okay, I have a pretty bad sound system going on right now. I'm trying to figure it out, but who do you want to share?
Well, I'd love for you guys to introduce yourselves.
You go first, Barbara.
Okay. Thank you for meeting with me. I really appreciate this honor. My name is Barbara Ulrich, and I'm the director of Open Door. And we are an adult education program. We do both English classes for second language learners, and also we do a high set, which is high school equivalency, which is the same as GED. And we have two components of that. We have English GED and Spanish.
And my name is Crystal Polis, and I am a grant writer for Open Door. I've been working with them for like 4 years now, and love the passion that I see in Barbara and her staff. And it is a joy to see how this program has grown and continues to grow.
Awesome, thank you. Cassie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, I'm Cassie Lau. I'm one of the board members, and I'm interested in hearing your story.
Good evening. I'm Christina Pacheco. I'm the Human Services Director for the city. And so I work with Eliberto.
And I'm Eliberto Mendoza, Human Services Program Manager, and I help guide this process. So we're going to take the next 15 minutes of Q&A, and then 5 minutes at the end. We don't have to use all the time for either section. That's fine, but we want to make sure that we give time for questions from the board, and also give you a chance to just share whatever you want to share at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and start the timer. All right. Cassie or Christina, do you want to start with any questions?
I guess I'd ask, so it looks, I mean, you provided statistics on where the people you work with, where their language skills are, et cetera. But I'm just wondering, is there a benchmark you could measure them against, like people who don't go to your classes? Because just living in the community there, skills should be getting better, right?
Like I said, the sound system is pretty bad, but you're asking who does not come to class? I'm sorry, what was your
No,
question?
sorry. Can you benchmark yourselves against people who don't go through these programs, right? You can see what people who go through your programs, how they improve, but could you benchmark them against people who don't to show the value of your program? Not that I'm saying you don't show the value.
Yes.
Okay. So again, I'm going to repeat the question to be sure I understand it. You want to know how the program helps the students that come? How do they show improvement? Is that what you're wondering?
Like I could give and Barbara, I could do one example that comes to mind immediately is one of the programs that Open Door offers is a testing center, and they can tell you that the students who and the testing center is open to the whole community. You don't have to have taken classes, be an enrolled student. And they have shown that their pass rate for the students who have taken classes is higher than the students who are not enrolled. So they do show success with that. It's during COVID, it was like double. After in the last year, it's caught up a little bit, but it's still 5 to 15% better if you're enrolled in class to pass the exams.
That's perfect. That's what I was driving at, and you answered it perfectly. So
Actually, to be honest with you, our testing center is open to people who do not take the classes, and the passing rate of people that do not take the classes is only 20%, as opposed to the high 80%. It fluctuated between 86 and 89%, but yeah, there is a huge significant gain. And another thing I want to show about that is Colorado Department of Education recognizes this significant difference. So they offered Open Door vouchers. Any students taking our classes can get the test free. And they want them to be in the class in order to get the test free because they realize the chances of them passing the test is much higher if they're in the class.
That's great. Thank you.
Christine, do you have any questions for Open Door?
Yeah, what would happen? We know that the need for our grant funds is really outpacing the resources that we have. What specific impact would either decreased funding or not being funded have on your particular students in Longmont?
Well, that's huge. We'd have to cancel classes. I can only hire teachers that I have the money to hire. And that has happened in the past. And so just again, to illustrate the difference is I was able to hire more teachers this last year. And right now I have 6 Hispanic or Spanish speaking GED classes. And 3 of them have 15 students in there. In the past, I've only been able to offer 2 classes, but now I have 6. And even with 6, they're full. If I didn't have the funding to hire 6 teachers and only hire 2, then I would have to put a lot of students on a waiting list.
Okay. Thank you.
So Barbara, and I think I ask this every year, right? Because you're a part of, you don't have your own 501c3. You're part of Calvary Church. Is there any is your board thinking about at all at some point, becoming your own 501c3? So giving you, opening that door for other funding as well?
That discussion's on the table right now. And Calvary Church is very, very generous with us and letting us have free rent and free lights and free copy machine access. And so what I don't want to have happen is to lose our connection with each other. However, having our own 501c is definitely going to be an advantage. So we're having a lot of discussions about that. I talked to the board just earlier this week. I talked with the pastor several times, my finance chair and our grant writer. I mean, we've had so many discussions going back and forth. In fact, most of the paperwork has been done and is sitting on the back shelf trying to figure out what we should do. And there's pros and cons on it. So, it's kind of hard to say at this point because it is on the table. There's lots of discussion. There's pros and cons.
Right. Yeah, no, I know the church has been very
Yeah.
generous. I also know that as a nonprofit, you guys work on very slim margins. And having your own 501c3 may open up for more funding, but I get it. It's been a really good partnership with Calvary Church for Open Door. But yeah, because I was looking at your budgets and I was like, what could be done if they were their own 501c3?
And so you mentioned that the church provides space, utilities, copies. What else is that kind of, do they provide computers, anything like that?
The church does not,
Okay.
but Open
you-
Door was able to purchase our own computers.
Got it.
So that was within our own program that we were able to get that. Some other things that the church does, that they give us 2 classrooms that we use for Open Door 24/7. Those rooms are not used for anything else.
That was the
the
next
other-
question I had. Yep.
Yeah, and then the other thing is they allow us to use the lobby and several classrooms during registration. And at our registration, we have 10 different stations that are happening at the same time. And the only way we can do that is by using several rooms in the church, a lot of space. Another thing they allow us to do is they allow us to have our graduation there without having to pay rent for use of the sanctuary or the gym or whatever. And they allow us to use the gym for our testing center, which is huge because In fact, we are able in one test hour, we are able to test 22 students, and we're trying to figure out how we can increase that to 25. And we have 2 tests that are done on a test day, which means we have access to the gym and an offside room from 7:30 in the morning all the way to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And they don't interrupt us. They don't charge us rent. And that is huge. Without that room, we wouldn't have a testing center.
Okay.
So you run a test. I've never asked this question, but I should. So you run a testing center that is on behalf of the Colorado Department of Education?
Yes.
And
So
so they,
in order to be a testing center, first of all, we had to apply to Colorado Department of Education and get approved. And then we also had to apply to the HISET program, the national office, and get approved. And they had a set of guidelines that our room had to be like in order to be approved, you know, being accessible, no distractions, good lighting, good seating, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it
We have
was
to
a
have
process.
proctors. We have to pay people to be proctors.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
They decide how much, in fact, they decide how much staff that we need, which is a testing center supervisor. And we have 2 because we have 1 English speaking and 1 Spanish speaking. And then also how many proctors? We have 2, 1 English, 1 Spanish speaking. But because our enrollment increased, we're expecting more test takers. So we need to hire a 3rd one. And then also we hire a 4th one who checks the IDs and checks the students in. So it is very costly to run the testing center. And as a matter of fact, I am meeting with the testing center director from Front Range and he's director over all the Front Range campuses, but he's housed in Longmont. So I'm going to meet with him. They recently started offering the HISET testing at the Longmont campus. However, the test is by computer only. And our program, we offer the test by paper. And especially the second language learners, most of them do not do good on computers. They don't even own computers. So not only are they challenged with computer skills, but other aspects. So having a paper test is really huge. And the testing center and the Boulder County workforce, both of them do computer testing, and both of them have referred individuals to us because of we using paper.
People are definitely driving from other places because it is very unique that you have the paper testing and Spanish paper testing in English and Spanish too. So
Right now, we have 70 Spanish speaking class enrollment. Now, that's not 70 students, but some students are taking 2 classes and some students are taking 1, but we have 70 enrolled in Spanish speaking classes. And that's significant because, like I said, 3 of them have 15 students. We try to keep it down to 10. And so the demand is just growing and growing. We actually have 90 students total between the Spanish class and the English class taking high school equivalency classes. So if you do the math and you divide that by 2, half of them do take the first test and half take the second. We're way over what we can only hold 25 people. So there's discussion, what do we do? And that's some students do like to go to Front Range and do the computer test. So that will bring it down. But and here's another thing that's coming across our table. We have 2 students right now, and I actually had one last year, but they are autistic and they don't do well in traditional high school. And the 2 we have right now have actually been through 4 different high schools and they haven't been able to find a good fit. And one of them really likes paper test. The other one does much better on the computer. So I'm working with Front Range and getting him accommodations that he needs that we can't provide. So it's really amazing the different scenarios that are coming into our program. There's a lot.
Yeah, sounds like it. Any other questions for Barbara or Crystal? All right. So I'm gonna stop our timer. We only got about a minute left anyway. And I'll give you 5 minutes so that you can, if there's anything you want to share, and again, you don't have to use it all, but if there's anything you want to share, this is the time to do it.
Me?
Either one.
Okay. Well, I think the thing that amazes me is I have a staff of 25 now, and there's 20 instructors and five support staff. And as we grow, we need various positions, like more classes. And I'm amazed at, even though we're growing with more staff, the demand is even higher than our staff can accommodate. And it is well known nationwide, and Longmont is included, that only 4% of the community are finding resources. And what's sad is that there are some of our community partners, programs in the community, that are shutting down because for various reasons. And we don't need people to shut down. We need more programs. And when every time one of these programs shuts down, they send the people to us, which is another reason why we're growing just by leaps and bounds. So I'm always amazed at the demand that's out there and how we just keep growing, even with adding. I would like to share a story with you. There's so many to share, but so the autistic boy, I met with his father and spoke with his father for an hour. And his father was telling me about this young man is really, really bright. He's very, very bright. The teachers recognize it. And, but he has autistic situation and needs. So the father was really concerned about him coming into our program and once again saying, no, it's not going to work. But the kid loves it. And the father is just so excited that he was able to find something for his child, and the child is exceeding and he's taking 2 classes. But here's another one. He has been taking classes with us for over 5 years. And at first he started in a GED program on the computer with Workforce, and he has been failing the tests. And it's because it's computer, and he doesn't even own a computer. He didn't even know how to type. And he was taking these tests on the computer. And anyways, when he heard that he could take classes with us in Spanish, the only day he had available was on a Tuesday evening. Well, our Spanish classes are Monday, Wednesday. So the teacher teaching Tuesday night said, hey, I'll work with him one-on-one. And he just came to me and he says, Open Door continues to help me reach the goals that I have, whether it's learning English or getting my diploma. So our teachers do care about the students. They try to meet the students' needs. They don't get rich in this program. So that's why we're here. We're here to help our students meet their goals. We're here to talk to them and find out what their needs are and try. We can't accommodate all of them, but we do try. And the staff is just wonderful. They're just wonderful people. They care. They care about the students.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Okay. If not, I want to thank you for the work that Open Door does in the community. Appreciate your time. And as a reminder, we're gonna do our recommendations in November, and we bring them before council in December. And we will let you know in between there what you're recommended for.
Alberto, I would like to share something else with you. When you came to talk to me last year, you were recommending to have a staff manual. We have a lot of the stuff that you're looking for, but it was papers here and there.
Right.
And I brought it all together and put it in a manual. And I had a training session, and 2 of our community partners Boulder Library was one of them, and another brand new ESL program in the community came to our training, and they got to see how we have the manual, what we include in the manual, and both of them took a copy of our manual, and they're going to be working in their own programs, creating the same thing. So that's another thing about our program is we don't just shut ourselves in and say, this is just us. We want to share with the community what works. And our training, we ended up with 22 people at our training session, and not all of them come to Open Door. So we do open ourselves up to other programs to help them, because we need it. Our community needs these programs.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. Appreciate it, and have a good night.
Okay, thank you so
thank you.
much
Bye.
for the
Good night,
opportunity.
All right.
everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.
All righty.